All right, thanks Lisa for having us. And so I'm Micah Toussaint. I am the Administrative Director for Performance Improvement at the Adult Hospital at Stanford Healthcare. And I have the pleasure of introducing today a member of our team, Joy Goor, and she will be discussing with us the insights of the Shingo model, some of its principles and applications. But let me just quickly tell you a little bit about Joy and before I hand it over. So Joy is a biomedical engineer with a master's in engineering from UC San Diego, and also has an MBA from Stanford University. And before she started her work as a principal or a management consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, she was a manufacturing engineer, and since then has shifted into healthcare and has had multiple positions in not only performance improvement, but also within operations. So she was at the Palo Alto Medical Foundation for some time in the lean promotion office there, and then also as a manager. And now she's a principal consultant for our team who oversees a lot of the coordination of how we sort of deploy our management system and improvement system across the organization, something that we call Stanford Ready. So Joy is joining us with plenty of healthcare management and consulting experience. She's an experienced process improvement expert, knows a lot about leading teams, and is currently working with something directly related to the Shingo model. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Joy, and Joy, take it away.
Let me make sure I share the right screen. So you can all see the Stanford Medicine Center of Improvement lecture series slide, right? Okay, good. So as Micah said, I am a principal improvement consultant here. I have spent my entire career in improving processes across the healthcare ecosystem. And I've spent the last 8 years particularly focused on the question of how do we develop a culture of improvement within healthcare? And Shingo is a really cool way to do it. So several months ago, I took the Shingo Discover Excellence workshop, and I wanted to share my learnings with all of you with Stanford Medicine. This is a teaser. If you want to learn more in depth, then go to the Shingo Institute and go take the same class that I took. My goal today is to improve and to provide an overview of Shingo insights, the model, and the principles in order for us to be able to then put on our Shingo glasses and think about our world through a new lens. In order to do that, I'm going to ask you for your participation through this talk, mostly through chat, but if you want to take yourself off mute and talk, I am perfectly happy with that. Interrupting me is just fine. So why learn about Shingo? There are so many models that we can use to improve processes, products, organizations. We have IHI, PDSA, Six Sigma, we have Lean, there's Baldrige that we talk a lot about in healthcare, and Shingo. So why talk about Shingo? It's because they're not mutually exclusive. John Toussaint said in the New England Journal of Medicine Catalyst that the US healthcare system is hampered by the lack of a comprehensive continuous improvement management system that empowers providers with the data to improve care. But a well-known management framework and a specific management approach can then fill that gap together, the Baldrige Excellence Framework and Shingo Model. And so in that particular article, he's talking about how the two fit together. And what I want us to take away from that, my goal is not to convince you that one particular model is better than another. My goal is for you to think critically about the way that you do your work and what you can and should do to improve, to make your lives and our patients' lives better. Each of these models has a lot to share and many insights to gain. I'm not saying that we should jump at every single fad and whip the entire organization around with the new right way to do things, but we should pick up new frameworks, try them out, look at them, look at our world through these new lenses, see what we learn, reflect on what we're doing and what we want to improve. So that's what I want to do today. Let's start with the Shingo model. So it starts with these 3 insights. Ideal results require ideal behavior. Purpose and systems drive.
Hey, did you put them in the trunk? Okay, thanks. How much does it cost? Oh, thank you. I'll come back and we'll figure it out. Thank you so much.
And principles inform ideal behavior. Let's start with this first one. Ideal results require ideal behavior. When you first look at it, it seems pretty simple. So as Micah said, I'm an engineer by training. You have a black box. You have your process. And with a process, you have your inputs and your outputs. Okay, so those are, we have our behaviors, the things that we do, go through a process and impact results. That makes sense. The piece that we don't normally think about is the next level of detail. In order to get excellent outcomes, in order to get those ideal results consistently, we need to have actions that are done well and consistently. So what does that mean? What is a behavior? When in the Shingo framework, a behavior is an action that can be observed, described, or recorded. So go ahead and in chat, write your answer for this first one. Which statement is a behavior? A, B, or C? Our team members know our vision and mission. Our team members understand our vision and mission. C, our team members talk about our vision and mission at the beginning of every meeting. Aha, lots of C's. Good job. So behavior is something that can be observed. It is an action. Let's do the second one. Our managers are confused with what is a priority. Our managers come in early and stay late every day. Our managers are angry with all the special projects. Lots of B's, good job. And if you think about it, so our manager, it's an action, it's a behavior. Our managers come in early and stay late every day. And that helps develop our culture. And is that good that they come in early and stay late every day, or is it bad? And it depends on your culture as to whether you would say yes or no. I'm not going to ask you which you think. When I heard this, I had my first aha. Clarifying the definition of behavior versus tool and the requirements for a system. So raise your hand if you have some sort of huddle that you're part of, either your actual hand or your virtual hand. I see lots of actual hands. Cool. So do you think a huddle is a behavior, something that you can observe a person doing, a tool, something that you use, or a system, a collection of tools and processes? Go ahead and write in chat. Do you think, and then why? So is it a behavior, which one is it and why? A behavior, a tool, or a system? Micah says behavior. Katie says a system. I see tool, I see system, I see tool. Okay, it gives me, oh, I see a why, good. A system because it's a process to get people together and share, cool. Terry says it can be used for all, depending on how it's executed. And Sarah says it's a system because you can employ many tools during the system. So I'd say yes to all of you. Then it depends on what piece of it that we're talking about, and being able to define what is a behavior, what is a tool, and what is a system helps us then focus on the piece that is important to us right at that moment, and figure out how to improve that aspect of it. And so having this definition and having a language was really helpful to me. I was surprised. Okay, so let's come back to ideal results require ideal behavior. We should be proactively thinking about what our key results are, which ones are most important, and what behaviors help us achieve that. And we'll come back to that a little bit more later. Let's do a quick exercise. What behaviors would you observe in a culture where there's a lot of firefighting? Go ahead and write in chat. If there's a lot of firefighting around you, what kind of behaviors, what actions would you see? fear, survival, mistakes, errors, deflection, power hungry. Cool. And then let's think a little bit more. A behavior is an action, something that we can see. We see burnout. No, we do. There's firefighting, there's mistrust, backbiting, staying late, that's definitely an action. Blame, people blaming each other, over-processing. Micah, why would you see over-processing?
So it feels like sometimes when you're in the weeds, I feel like you're making mistakes, you're doing a lot of rework, and you have little time to plan your work and do it effectively.
Yeah. I see exhaustion, stressed out people. Okay, how about the other way around? What if we have what if we have a culture of collaboration? What would you see? What behaviors would you see? Trust. What actions? Ooh, Megan has her hand raised. Megan, is your hand raised from before?
Yes, it was. Sorry.
No problem. People interacting. Good, that's an action. We see teamwork, that's an action. People speaking up, that's a great action. I see that several times. Communication, collaboration, asking more questions, soliciting feedback, shout outs, praise, listening, celebrating. That sounds like a great environment to be part of. So you can see that the tie between behaviors and culture. Now let's come back to the second insight. Purpose and systems drive behavior. Raise your hand. How many of you know your organization's mission or vision? I see a little bit. I see a couple hands, not as many as have huddles. Well, I have my badge, and on my badge, we have our mission. You can't quite see it there. Mission and our vision. Our mission is to care, to educate, and to discover. Oh, I see lots of virtual hands. That's good. And our vision is healing humanity through science and compassion, one patient at a time. And go ahead and chat. What is an example of one of your behaviors that align to our organization's mission? To care, to educate, to discover, healing humanity through science and compassion, one patient at a time. There's another one that I really like, to be the best at getting better. That one resonates really well with what I do and with what our team does. Inclusiveness. Incorporating the education aspect to our improvement work by promoting publishing. Absolutely. Rationale behind decisions or recommendations. CMQCC's MV. Christine, I don't know what that means.
That's right, Stan. We're at the California Maternal Quality Care Collaborative, and our vision and our mission and our vision absolutely relies on data.
Cool. And Lily says active listening. Nice. And how does it feel when you do things that don't align with your vision? Go ahead and chat. How does it feel? Frustrating. Wasting time, absolutely. Exhausting, demotivating. So why do you do these things that don't align with your mission and vision? I would say that there are probably systems that are driving that behavior. Occasionally it's fun. They're asked, misaligned priorities. So I would guess that there are systems that are driving the behavior of doing things that don't fit with your mission and vision, that don't align with what you want to be doing. And so that's how we see the purpose and systems are then driving our behavior. Let's look at insight number 3. Principles inform ideal behavior. Let's look more into what Shingo means by principles. Principles inform ideal behavior because principles are a foundational rule that has an inevitable consequence. So let's take gravity as an example. It is something that is universal and timeless. It applies everywhere, always. As long as you are next to a large body of mass, such as the Earth, there is gravity. It is evident. We can't invent it, but we can discover them through research and study. So imagine you are a 9-month-old sitting at the dinner table and you pick up, hopefully it's something solid like a piece of bread, and you drop it. What does it do? It drops, it falls. They didn't know that, they're discovering it. And governing consequences, regardless of their understanding of the principle, we are all subject to the consequence of that principle. So they drop the bread, and what happens? The dog comes and picks it up. All of a sudden, magic. Drop, take bread, let it out of your hand, dog comes. Direct correlation. So in the same way, the Shingo model is trying to figure out what those principles are that are universal and timeless, that are evident and that govern consequences, whether we know that they exist or not. So this is what they have currently. There's 3 sections. The first 2 are cultural enablers: respect every individual and lead with humility. The second set are continuous improvement: assure quality at the source, improve flow and pull, seek perfection, embrace scientific thinking, and focus on process. And then the top section is enterprise alignment: creating value for the customer, creating constancy of purpose, and thinking systemically. One thing that I have found really interesting is that the Shingo Institute doesn't claim that they have all the right answers. They're saying that they're still discovering and adapting the principles over time. I was talking with one of my colleagues after I took this class, and we were looking at a couple different versions that we've gathered over the years, and all of them are slightly different from each other because they know they don't have the perfect answer. We're still being iterated on. And the other thing is they actively let organizations choose which principles resonate with them. So we had examples in the class of a couple organizations that they had this list of 10, but 10 is a lot. So they picked the top 6 or 7 that most resonated with them, and those were the ones that they focused on. And one of the questions that was in our slides were, which ones resonate with you? I thought that was really super cool. So those are the principles. The 2 most important principles are respect every individual and constancy of purpose. If you don't have those 2, then it's really hard for your organization to keep moving. So let's look at an example of constancy of purpose. So go ahead and chat. What is a consequence of having a clear purpose that doesn't change over time? So we have our mission, our vision, and that's, if it stays consistent over time, what do we get? Go ahead and chat. What is a consequence? We get an outcome to action or inaction. We're building our culture, fidelity. We can make the same decisions over time and in the same situation. We can have belonging, less confusion, focus, aligned goals. We're not chasing shiny balls. Cool. And what about the other way around? What if we had a mission or a vision that kept changing? We had leaders that kept changing and their approach kept changing. What happens? What's a consequence of that, of not having that constancy of purpose? Confusion, bad morale, no accountability, disengaged employees, demoralized workforce, loss of focus, complexity, inconsistent message, and waste of time and effort. Absolutely, I think you're getting it. So these were the 3 insights. The Shingo model is based on these insights. And so this is the model itself. And so they have this quote, Edgar Schein, the only thing of real importance that leaders do is to create and manage culture. If you do not manage culture, it manages you, and you may not even be aware of the extent to which this is happening. And this is true whether you're the dean, whether you're a clinic manager, or if you're a frontline physician where you have your team of your nurse and your resident. And so the model, it centers around building that culture and having the behaviors to be able to build that culture in order to get the results. So that gold diamond, our goal is to have the results that we want. It's to be the top 10 in Vizient. It's to be the best at getting better. It's to be the top, best AMC, the lowest cost AMC in California, et cetera, et cetera. And culture leads us to the results that we get, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Our systems and our tools and how we follow our guiding principles impacts our culture and our results. So let's put this all together. Years ago, the Shingo Institute noticed a common trend among organizations that were driving a culture of continuous improvement. Remember at the beginning, we talked about all of these different ways that we could approach things. We have PDSA, we have Lean, we have Six Sigma, and organizations would push for that. They'd get a nice improvement, and then they didn't sustain. It would drop. The gains were often accompanied with a swift decline. And so the question is why? Well, they're focusing on tools and they're focusing on results, those two pieces. And those two pieces are not quite enough to be able to get ourselves over to that bridge of sustainability. So what do we need to do to be able to close that gap? How do we sustain those results? We need systems to be able to do that. We need systems to be able to help us keep things consistent. And how do you keep systems consistent? You need the behaviors and principles to be able to help us solidify those systems and keep everything stable. And so not only do we need to focus on results and our KPIs, but we need to focus on behaviors and KBIs, key behavioral indicators. So this is an example of how behavior systems and tools tie together. So this is an example that they gave. And I'm showing this up so that we can set up our last activity. And so here in this example, the principle that we're looking at is respect every individual. For every role, you expect different behaviors. You expect different actions from each different role. So an executive, you would expect leaders to acknowledge the specific behaviors that they're seeing in order to close the gap to ideal. Or a team member needs to be, I can't read it from there, to demonstrate an eagerness to learn new skills, take initiative, and share their learnings and success with others. You have the actions that they are taking. You have systems that are helping to support that. So there's a recognition system, a safety system, a communication system. And within that, you have tools that help people use them. So communication system of itself is kind of nebulous, but having a newsletter and what goes into that newsletter helps us then put all of those pieces together. When I was at the workshop, we went to Gemba. We went to the place where the work is done virtually, and went to visit an inpatient unit at McKay Hospital. And I was so impressed. The frontline nurses there were incredibly engaged with improvement. As before we went in, they kind of walked us through a patient experience. And as they were gathering, waiting for us to join them, they were PDSAing that in that leftmost box. They were PDSAing their whiteboard, trying to figure out what the next things were that they wanted to improve because it wasn't just right. And that was just something that they were doing for fun because they wanted to. And then if we look at the bottom middle picture, they had an idea board in their break room where the frontline nurses take the ideas to implement. And for example, one nurse was having a hard time remembering the dietitian recommendations that they were all supposed to be sharing. And she knew that she wasn't the only one. And so she had a little sticky and she put it on there and it got approved. And she created a 1-point lesson and was laminating them for each room on the unit so that nobody would have the problem that she was having. And I thought the engagement they had from all of their frontline without people saying, oh, this is your job, somebody else, like manager, you do it, APCM, you do it. I thought that was really cool. And
this is very cool. Thank you for sharing this.
Absolutely. And then looking at the top right picture, they had regular check-ins to align on and make sure that they're working on projects that are important to the organization. That looks fairly similar to the kinds of things that we do. I thought it was also cool that up at the top, they have their mission. Let's see if I can read it from here. Our skills team is committed to providing safe, proactive, and compassionate care to every patient, every time. That way, you don't even have to look on your badge. You just see it up on your wall. And so we saw this, we talked to them, we learned some of the great things that they're doing. And then we came back to our little work group and we started talking about, okay, so what does that mean with Shingo? How do we link behavior systems and tools at Intermountain? And so what we did is that over on the right, we talked about their strengths, and on the left talked about their strengths, and the right talked about opportunities, and also what systems did we see. So what I would like to do for the next, how about 15 minutes, is do the same thing for ourselves. So I would like to link behavior, systems, and tools, just looking at the principle of respecting every individual, because no matter what kind of team we are in, we are all in teams, and we all see whether there is respect or isn't respect in any way, shape, or form. And then once we've done that, I want to reflect a little bit about what do we do well, where are gaps, and use that to be able to put those Shingo lenses on and see what do we think of our world and what can we be doing better? What should we be doing better? Let's see, let me grab, Micah, do you have the link easily available? Otherwise it'll take me just a second.
I have it.
You have it?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got it too. Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to share this link, or Micah just shared the link. I'm going to have it up on our screen so that we can all see it. And if you already know how to use Mural, you are more than welcome to click on that link and join in and start typing to your heart's desire. And if not, then that's fine. Go ahead and write in chat what you think your answers. So let's. Oh, I already see some people moving. Cool. So the first question is, when we think about respect every individual, and if you are in there, you can zoom in and actually look at their definition of respect every individual. Within either your organization or even within your own team, think about what strengths do you see that relate to respecting every individual? What's a strength? And what is that behavior that you see associated with it? For example, a strength could be everyone gets a voice. I feel like everyone gets a voice. And what's a behavior associated with that? One example is UHA a couple months ago had an open forum for anyone at Stanford Medicine to get feedback as they were developing their strategic plan. I thought that was a really super cool way to be able to make sure that they were getting everyone's voice. As I was listening to it, they had quite a few frontline people from across the organization sharing their perspective on what was important. Yeah, so let's start with that box. And you can copy and paste new stickies if you want. And if you want to just chat and put it in, that would be fine too. Mike is going to throw it in if you write anything in chat. Zooming in so we can see. What behaviors do we see too? So I see a check mark on asking humble questions. How do I see, where's an example? I guess that is the behavior, is asking questions. Asking, I'm wondering if, letting all lead improvement projects. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a certain role in order to lead an improvement project. Cool. Oh, able to escalate issues at daily huddles and get a response. Cool. Reflecting back, asking, tell me more about that. Recognizing individual contributions, empowering staff to do the right thing, giving others credit. Simply asking the question why. And sometimes in some organizations, asking the question why is not helpful. It's not respecting. It's not respectful. They'd be saying, oh my gosh, why are you asking me why? Did you not believe me? So having the culture where it's okay to ask why and people believe, like truly think that it's coming from a good place. That's great. Saying thank you. Recognizing different ideas. Cool. And I see some people already moving on to opportunities. Oh, I see there's a couple examples in chat too. So CI cares is a strength as well as P cares, absolutely. Saying thank you, including everyone, even if they're shy. And Catherine, what's an example of including everyone? How do people do that? Because that's a great thing to include everyone. I was on a call yesterday, and one of the discussions was including everyone by doing round robin and making sure that everyone was able to give their say rather than just the people who are more likely to speak up. Cool, asking specific people for their opinion when you know that they won't speak up voluntarily. That's great. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, let's move on to opportunities and behaviors. Looks like a few people have already started. We have some opportunities are capturing recognition and providing a place to share. Interrupting, disseminating information in a standard way, providing feedback to those who are not respectful. So that means that we have an opportunity to do better, providing feedback to those who are not respectful. Having clear role growth opportunities, alternative opportunities to provide feedback. Setting clear expectations. It's one that we can all work on. We were having a conversation on that in our team meeting today. Telling people what to do. Blaming and shaming. Structured opportunities for groups to have a voice. Underutilized talents. The person who wrote that, can you either say more or write a little bit more about underutilized talents? Giving honest feedback. Following up with responses to feedback. Telling instead of coaching. That one sounds very similar to another one. Oh, telling people what to do. Command and control, having role clarity. So there's a couple in here on role clarity. So it'd be a good thing for us to take back, and we can sort them into themes and figure out which then are the ones that are bubbling up to the top. Let's move down now over to systems. What systems do we have to be able to help make sure that we are respecting every individual. We have CI cares, I saw that, the CI cares and P cares. Stand out. Formally valuing different cultures on the internet. Yeah. Ensuring diverse representation at all levels. Daily huddles between departments. Having star awards. Having ERGs. I think that goes with the formally valuing different cultures on the internet. Cool. Tier 4 shout outs. And I'd imagine we have tier 3 shout outs. I'd imagine that many others have something similar. Cool. And when we think about, as we're creating this, remember the purpose, the reason that I wanted to do this with you right now was so that you could put on your Shingo glasses, your lenses, and figure out, and first of all, pat ourselves on the back for the things that we are doing well, and how do we help move those and make them even better. And pieces, and then for things that we aren't, what is it that we should be focusing on so that we can make a change and be even better? See, I'm going through, I see Dawn has a question. What about systems that are currently contributing to the negative, disrespecting individuals? Yeah, I think that's a good question. So what in the example, in the practice that we did, we were looking more at what systems do they have to be able to support. And that's a really good question, as we like which of these systems are not necessarily even like kind of not doing anything about supporting respect for every individual, but what are contributing negatively to that. I didn't make a box for that. I didn't feel like going there today, but if as you put on your Shingo glasses and you're thinking about it, that's a great question to be asking. Which ones are not neutral, but even negatively impacting? And how do we change those systems to be able to address and support the culture that we are trying to improve? Cool. And Don says some legacy systems, which once were good, left to exist too long now, may now be contributing to disrespecting individuals. That is absolutely true. So that's a great thing to be looking at. So this was the exercise that I wanted to do. So I wanted to open it up now to questions. What questions do you all have?
Joy, when you had the training, what health systems are using this model that you thought were exemplars?
Certainly, like Intermountain. One thing that I found interesting too was that we went to a couple different we visited a couple different departments, and they weren't all the same. So the one that we went to was hosted by Intermountain. And some of like the pictures that I gave you was of a department that was doing it very well. The other one that we went to visit was okay. I thought that like there were a whole bunch of holes that I could see, and some of the weaknesses that I see in our organization that I was hoping to have seen something different. It was the same. So I thought it was really interesting how much variation there was even within an organization. So Intermountain does it well. I think I actually had a list on a previous slide. Cleveland Clinic.
Of course, I didn't raise my hand, but Kathleen, of course, very politely did.
Oh, I think she's had her hand raised for a while. I think she forgot to put it down. Kathleen, do you have a question? Yes, Micah.
I had an observation and question. You know, we had a joint goal this past year in the quality department in the leadership team. So all of Stanford Healthcare adult quality team for for communication. And I think there were some questions around 3 different types of questions. One was, communication within my team. I think it was, we don't experience a lot of hiccups essentially within the team. And then it was the same question was posed within the greater quality team, is there, or it was Likert scale, communication breakdowns is what it was. And then, I feel like there are communication breakdowns with the broader organization. So there were these 3 questions, right? And I wonder if because those questions are, like for instance, if I take those questions and I develop a principle out of them, so we obviously do not want communication breakdowns within our team or with outside of our team. Is this a way, that the Shingo way of taking a principle like that and then, and then evaluating whether or not we're following that principle, like what sort of behaviors we exhibit that sort of potentially, shine light on that principle, which ones, where the opportunities are, and then do we have the systems in place that are helping it? So is this kind of the exercise and mental model that you go through? And
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. And they said they're still discovering principles. So if we wanted to call something different, we wanted to talk about it as communication, then we could. And then you think about what behaviors do we want in order to help facilitate communication? What systems do we have, or should we have, and what tools do we have to be able to make that clear and consistent? Good question. And then Max, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I've noticed that visual management has always been a great tool to keep people accountable and keep that kind of morale boost coming up, but I found it really challenging in the virtual world. And I'm curious if you have any tools or suggestions for things that might be helpful for leveraging that same kind of visual management in a virtual space.
Cool. I'd like to open this up to the group. Who here has a visual management system that they are using that they've had to switch to over in the last year and a half? I'm sure some of you on here have a virtual visual management system. Lots of smart sheets. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Smart sheets mural. Lots and lots of smart sheets. I'm working with the Cancer Center, and they have done a really cool way. They've taken their key metrics that they want to be tracking and making it so that not only do you have here's how many patients we had today, here's how many calls we had today, here's what our queue looks like today. But by plugging it into Smartsheet, you're now able to see that trend over time, and you can see, oh, today felt high, but it actually wasn't. It was pretty consistent in the trend of where we've been. But there were these other things. We were short a provider, or we were short some other things, or some other activities were going on. And so it gives you a little bit more perspective, being able to look at the historical. So I thought they've done a really nice job of doing it that way. Allison, you want to talk out loud about what you've done?
Sure. So our radiology group, we have techs over all of our different outpatient sites. I think there's like 13 different sites, 6 different modalities. And in the past, it's always been hard to get our modality managers and our techs all together at the same place because they're just spread all over, and then having to deal with patient care. So huddling was kind of a hard thing. However, once we moved everyone to a virtual or online huddle board, they're able to connect across all of their sites at the same time every single day, or once or twice a week, however they've put that together. But all of a sudden, everyone is able to see the metrics. Everyone is able to see issues that are going on at different sites. And then they can, like all of the techs can also put onto the board if they're seeing issues that they need their management to see. And so it really has opened up a lot of communication in a way that we haven't had before.
Cool. And Allison, I saw a request to maybe show it.
Can you show us, Allison? This is Sarah Stafford. I'm really curious to see what it looks like, only because I've have a couple up my sleeve myself. So I was just curious what it looks like.
Let me pull up one real quick. With all of the changes that they just made to smart sheets too, it's been a little bit of a hectic week with that.
Right.
And Allison,
I have a couple workarounds for those things as well, Allison, if you wanted to connect offline, if you're having any trouble.
Appreciate that. Okay, so here's our MRI teams. And of course, it's going to take a hot second to load. But they have things like different SHC links that are useful, vacation calendars, contact information, their communications. This is where they put a lot of their personal announcements, any equipment issues. They do regular QC forms, and so those are put on there. These are some metrics that they follow for how many protocols they have to do in their team, outpatient volumes, protocol updates. So it's very specific to this team.
Right.
And a lot of our groups have something very similar, but this they'll review every day. And then as well, since everyone's able to gather together, they take turns in which site will actually lead this huddle. So it's not just the management team speaking every single day.
This looks amazing, Allison. Kudos to you. This looks great.
Definitely pass that along to
Absolutely
Jason,
incredible.
who built this
Yeah.
one.
I love your icon at the top. I think anytime you can bring a little flair or a little bit of a personalization to things like this, people, kind of come to the table a lot more willingly. So great job.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Cool. And then Max also had a question, if anyone has any good examples of KBIs, key behavioral indicators, that they include on their dashboards.
This is Sarah. I can tell that there are some really awesome ways in which you can leverage the power of Smartsheet to enter things in like kudos and so forth. And then you can actually put formulas in there to roll them up. One of the things that are, I think helpful is you hear the shout out, but you don't necessarily get to see them again over time, Joy. And it's really awesome to kind of be able to recognize people that kind of get those a lot, but also it kind of brings other people to recognize others that may not have done it before. So they have a tendency to speak up if you can see it in like a graph or so forth. And then, it kind of pulls on that effective domain of that, people want to be able to be recognized. So there's one way to do it. It's a little bit of a complicated thing in Smartsheet. So if you guys want any tips on how to do that, you can actually roll it up and have like a metric assigned to it, and then even show it over a month, and then even over the year, how many times someone's name has come up in a huddle. So it's pretty cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, that trending is really interesting. And Lisa mentioned that in SHC quality, that we ask for volunteers for one good thing or three good things, and it gets documented. And so even if you weren't at that huddle, then you still get to read it and see everybody's names. So that is cool. It doesn't have the trending over time, which is cool. Nice.
And you kind of learn some cool things about each other in that as well. So it kind of brings in that personal aspect that's not just business, because it's like humanizing the interactions between each other, and you get to learn something new. Like I like The Office, obviously, with my Zoom background. So that's a behavior I personally do, is I actually will pick Zoom backgrounds based on, how it is that I'm feeling personally. So if you see something up there and you're like, Sarah, what's in your head? It's usually in the Zoom background. So that's something that you can do that's fun. And it brings a smile to people's face because they're like, I know that show. Or they're like, what is that you're doing? So that's what I do.
What other questions do we have?
So I guess, Joy, I saw earlier the Shingo model, and it was, I can't remember if it was juxtaposition or if it was together with Baldrige. Does Baldrige framework borrow at all from Shingo principles or behaviors, do you know of, or are they just so similar, and that's one of the reasons why you were highlighting that?
They are similar, so I don't think they are related, purposefully related. John Toussaint was looking at the two of them and saying, well, does it make sense to use one or the other? And he said, no, use both of them. That you can, by using the Shingo principles and making sure that you have systems that are aligning to the behaviors that you want, building that culture that you want, then you're getting to the results that you want. And by setting up that environment, that you are then following the same expectations that are needed to be Baldrige certified.
Thanks.
Cool.
And I guess I just have one more question, if no one else is going to ask one. So you are leading a lot of the work related to, building out, some infrastructure for the Stanford operating system, as it's known. And so, when it comes to, I guess, operating system or frontline teams, where do you see Shingo? If I'm a leader of a frontline team, not an operations leader or a clinical leader, where does Shingo in my brain? Like where should I place that? And what are your thoughts about, is Shingo something, this model maybe something that I could think about just to sort of evaluate my management system? Is it something I could explore just to learn more about the dimensions? So what do you think would be a good takeaway for us? Not to put you on the spot, but to put you
No,
on
I think that's a really good question. And I think it depends more on where we would want to go organizationally. Like, so if I were to take it personally, if I were a clinic manager, as I was several years ago, and I would take this and look at what is it that I am doing with my team, and how do I make sure, one, that I have this constancy of purpose, and help them make sure that we are all moving in the same direction together, and building. Like, one thing that I did do was try to help build a culture of teamwork where we could all be working together and have little tiny bits of time for improvement. So that whole second section of the principles talking about continuous improvement, how do we set up an infrastructure so that people are, one, thinking about it, giving ideas, and making time to actually make those changes, and then coming back to them and having all of those steps put together. It's very difficult when you're in the middle of just trying to see patients every day and work on staffing. Do you have the right staff for the day? And so how do you set yourself up in a way that can happen and not get dropped? And so that would be if I wanted to take it just as my own individual. As an organization, if we wanted to say we would like to use a Shingo approach and follow the Shingo model, and then we would be able to say these are the main principles that we want to be focusing on, and this is how we want to do it. We could set up organizational-wide systems to be able to then keep consistency between departments, between teams, have consistent language among teams. And as we are setting up Stanford Operating System, we are following many of those same principles. We're trying to say, what are the main things that we need to make sure that we are doing consistently? What are the behaviors that we should do consistently to be able to get ourselves to maintaining top 10 in Vizient, to be the lowest cost AMC, to have the best equity that we can, to have the highest engagement that we can, and to have the best patient experience that we can. And so by being able to have those principles set out and the expectations set up, then it makes it easier for us to have the same language and the same kind of conversation together.
All right, thanks, Les.
Any last questions?
Okay. Well, thank you, Joy. Very interactive session, and got a lot of participation, and I'm sure you'll probably get more conversation started up from some improvement practitioners who know you, and then sounds like some folks even connected on some smart sheet technology and things. So glad to make those connections. And thank you guys for having us and engaging with us in the conversation. We will let you get back to your jobs. Thank you very much, Lisa, for having us.
Thank you.
Great
Have a
job.
good day.
Thank you all.